everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm John, and today we're up to part 3 of our Sony Pictures Classics 30th Anniversary 4K Blu-ray set review. And more specifically, today we're going to be talking about 1995's The City of Lost Children. But before we dive into my review of that, if you are a fan of 4K Blu-ray reviews, movie reviews, some tech and game reviews along the way, nothing helps the channel out more than by you liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So City of Lost Children was originally released in 1995, and I'm about to butcher some names. So this film was directed by Mark Caro and Jean-Pierre Jeunet. I hope I said those names right. This is actually a co-production between France, Spain, and Germany. So this is a foreign film. So this film actually starring Ron Perlman. It surprised me being that it's a foreign film, but Ron Perlman has worked with Guillermo del Toro a lot in pretty much all of his films. So Ron Perlman is a very wide-ranging actor. I really do think we've underappreciated his work. You know, he's been working since the late 80s. I mean, the first thing I ever saw him in was Hellboy, but when you go back and look at it, he actually starred in a Beauty and the Beast TV show that came out in the late 80s with him and Linda Hamilton. He plays the Beast, obviously. And that came out before the 1991 animated film, so Ron Perlman's been working a long time. Throughout the 90s, he appeared in a lot of films, and then he got his big break where most people knew him from was Hellboy, and then after that he did Sons of Anarchy, where everybody knew who he was, and even since then he's still a great working actor. We see him in all of Del Toro's movies. He was just a voice actor in the Pinocchio on Netflix that just came out. I just don't think we've appreciated his body of work. And this film really does show off how good of an actor he is. Now, because of his unique look and, you know, that jawline and the way he's built, in this movie he's a younger guy. It's 1995, so his name is One. And he's pretty much a performer. And when we first see him at the beginning of this film, you know, they just use him to break out of the chains. And, you know, Ron Perlman back then, yeah, he was ripped. He was jacked. He almost look like me, like how I look right now. But the city he lives in, children just keep disappearing, and we find out pretty soon these children, they're being kidnapped and sent to this remote island where a mad scientist, played by Daniel Elmfork, he himself has this crazy island where he has 6 clones of himself, or they're like his sons, but they're all played by the same actor and they all look exactly the same. They're all weird and they suffer from a thing called sleeping disorder. So basically they just fall asleep at random points. There's an actual medical condition I know of that actually does cause this, but they all suffer from the same thing. He has a brain that he keeps in a vast of liquid called Irvin that he talks to, just so he can communicate with somebody who's just as intelligent as him, because he is a genius, but he suffers from a really crazy disorder where he can't dream or have nightmares, and it really bothers him. So he kidnaps these kids and he basically steals their dreams and uses them for himself so he can experience that again, because he's aging at a rapid rate because of the fact he can't dream. Now, this was very hard to figure out while watching the movie. I actually had to look some of this up. It's kind of a hard plot to follow, but it really didn't bother me because this movie itself is beautiful. Right from the jump, it just looked gorgeous. One of the best looking films I've seen. I mean, the 4K I'm sure was doing a lot of that work, but still, set design. If you ever needed an example of great set design, this is it right here. It's like in this like steampunk type of world. It's surrounded by some sort of body of water, and then the evil scientist, he lives in this like big lair in the middle of an island. It's funny, this movie came out the same year as Batman Forever, and the things he puts on his head look just like the stuff that the Riddler was using, his TV top thing in Batman Forever. It's funny that he's wearing it too in this movie, and just like in Batman Forever, the Riddler himself has an evil lair. So it was pretty funny that these movies came out in the same year, and they kind of had a similar look to the evil lairs. So I thought that was a weird coincidence, but you know, in film history, there's a lot of weird coincidences like that. So this film actually, it felt like watching it like Terry Gilliam and Guillermo del Toro had a baby, and this is the movie that came out. Because Terry Gilliam makes a lot of strange movies, but Guillermo del Toro makes a lot of heartfelt fantasies like The Devil's Backbone, which we'll be talking about because that's in this set, and Pan's Labyrinth, where they have these like deep fantasies, but they all have a heart to them, they all have a meaning to them, and that's what this film was trying to go for. But it also was just so strange and just so weird. The close-ups on these guys' faces, like, it felt very much like a Terry Gilliam film in that sense. And then, you know, but it still has that heart. Like Ron Perlman, like, he's just looking for his little brother, he calls him, his adopted little brother. It's a kid he found in the trash. So he's out there looking for him because he got kidnapped because this evil scientist wants his dreams. One little girl really takes a liking to him, and she wants to help him find his little brother because she knows that he has a heart. You know, they only use him for his strength. There's these 2 twins, or I guess they're conjoined twins, that basically they used him because he was able to steal this big heavy safe and carry it. So everyone's just always using him for what he is, and that's just a big, strong man. But he's a big, strong man with a heart. And there's actually one really funny scene in this where he's drinking, and we cut to a little spot where in the right hand of the frame, we get a really close-up of a guy on a phone, and at the bottom, we can see Ron Perlman's character still drinking, so he's like drinking and tossing the glasses, but you wouldn't notice it because it's kind of out of frame. They want you to pay attention to the guy on the phone, but I thought that was really clever camera work because this film does feature a lot of great camera work. Cinematography is a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10 on this film. Even if the plot and the story don't really work 100% for me because I'm not the biggest fantasy film guy, so I really need something special, and this is special from a visual standpoint, but from a story standpoint, it just didn't 100% work for me, and the way they delivered it was just, it was a little unorganized, I felt like, and I felt like it could have been delivered to the viewer a lot easier and a lot more easy to comprehend. Now, this film, you can watch it in an English dub or you can watch it in French with subtitles, and the subtitles might make it easier to understand the film because it is a little bit hard to follow. But it's definitely a very original and unique story. It's very well acted. It's very well directed. I've never seen any of these directors' films before. This is my first time. I've heard of their other films, or at least one of the directors' other films. I've just never seen them, and for me, this was definitely a really great introduction to them. It's not my favorite so far that I've seen in the Sony Pictures box set. It's just not my type of film overall. But like I said, the costume design, the set design, the cinematography, if you're a fan of that, it's 100% worth seeing it because it's just unbelievable. And in 1995. Now, there is some CGI in this, and it can be a little bad at points. I'm not going to lie to you. It's early CGI, but they don't use it too much. Like to the point where it like overwhelms you and you're like, oh, okay, enough with the CGI. It's not like another movie that came out around that time with its awful CGI called Spawn. That movie just abused CGI into the worst way. Now, this movie uses the CGI when it needs to, and the way I always look at CGI from the 90s is it's always like a video game generation ahead. Like, so this is about around the time when the N64 and the PlayStation were out, so the CGI kind of looks like PS2, Xbox graphics, so it's not the greatest, but they don't abuse it like I said. And speaking of video games, one interesting thing is the little girl in this movie at one point, or a couple points, she's like climbing through the pipes of the city, and you only see her feet as she's like going away, and it looks just like the little sisters in BioShock. And the way the city looks, I would not be surprised at all if this film inspired BioShock. BioShock, yes, it's underwater, but this city is surrounded by water. It's got that old-timey feel of it, like I said, kind of like a steampunk kind of a feel where it doesn't take place in the real world, and that's just like what Rapture felt like in BioShock, so I would not be surprised at all if this film inspired BioShock. I got a lot of BioShock feelings while watching this film. So anyway, from a film standpoint, I could still recommend it. Like I said, it's not my favorite film. I don't imagine I'll be revisiting this too much, but it's still a good time. Like I said, I still love that set design. I was so into it, so I was into it visually, so I was never bored throughout, so I can recommend the film, but it's not my personal favorite film, and I don't know how you guys are going to feel about it, but if you are a fan of this film, or you just want to check this out, well, the good news for you is that it is in the Sony Pictures 4K Blu-ray set, and we're going to review that right now. So we're going to go in here, we're going to grab the third film, so just like all the others, it's in this really nice hard case. You open it up, it's going to be the third 4K in, and that's the City of Lost Children right here. You close this bad boy up, and just like all the others in the set, you get a really nice, unique slipcover. No stats on the back of the slipcover, just some quotes and some pictures. You slide that slipcover off, and then you get the original movie poster right there, which I actually think is better than that slipcover. I like this art a little bit more, but I appreciate that we get both. You get your stats on the back of this one. You pop it open, it's a 1-disc set. You get a really nice 4K disc design on there. Everything is going to be on that 4K. All of your extras, the film, everything, all your setup, all on there. No second Blu-ray in here, so you're extras, like I said, just like with Orlando and just like with the Celluloid Closet, there's not that many extras, but the extras on here are just like with Orlando. There's a good deep dive into the making of the film. There's a couple audio commentary tracks, one of them featuring the director and one of the directors and Ron Perlman, so I thought that was really cool. I always love that Ron Perlman's always down to do this stuff. He just seems like such a cool guy. Talking highly of Ron Perlman here, but again, I just feel like we don't appreciate that guy enough. So yeah, the extras aren't the greatest, but I do still appreciate that in this box set, every single film has extras in it. That really is just something that really just helps to drive home how awesome this box set is. And I feel like this was put in here as a visual showpiece because visually this has Dolby Atmos, HDR10, it's in native 4K, it's in its original aspect ratio of 1.85, so this fills up your screen, and just the entire time, right from the time even with the opening credits and all those Santa Clauses coming down the chimney, it just looked beautiful. And I was blown away, gorgeous. The Dolby Vision, the HDR have never made this movie look better than it does now, and that's going off the fact that I've never seen this film before, because just the contrast between the colors and the blacks, all the colors pop, you know, the blacks are super deep. This is a very colorful film, you know, it's a dark colorful film too, so that's what really makes it even more unique. It takes place at night the entire time, so having Dolby Vision on here is just doing a ton of work as far as making sure that the colors that are dark definitely seem dark and don't have like a gray tint to them, don't give that like oily look to them, and it never has that throughout. The only complaints I can honestly say about the visuals, there are certain scenes where I thought the film grain was very noticeable, and you know, film grain is important. You don't want to wipe that clean with any DNR or anything like that, but you know, you want to at least like control it. And there was a couple scenes, very minor scenes, there's very minor complaints as far as the visuals go, because like I said, I think the visuals on this are incredible. But you know, there are some scenes you'll notice that the grain might be a little high, but that's really again like a minor complaint because it's a very colorful movie, and the 4K here just does so much justice of making this film just really just shine. Like, you know, there's certain scenes like the brain, like I was talking about, it's in a vat of like liquid, and it's always got surrounded by like green, and that green just, you know, it's so vivid and dynamic how it pops off your screen now. And just everyone's skin tones, like I said, there's a lot of close-ups in this, so you know, you could see their skin and it's clear as day. It looks like you're staring right into their eyes, and even though these people, most of them look like grotesque and disgusting, you know, you're like, okay, I feel like we're in the same room, but I don't like it. So, you know, that's all going on also. And I just thought, okay, they did a nice job with this. I bet you they put this in here just to show you what Sony can do with their 4Ks, because we've said before on this channel, so Sony from a visual standpoint, and they know how to really make the best use of getting their films onto 4K and getting the most out of them. Like whatever they're doing on all their transfers, I very rarely have a complaint about Sony, and this from a visual standpoint, I have absolutely no complaints. It just looked phenomenal. It really could be a showpiece from a visual standpoint, especially bringing older films to the new 4K format. You know, this is a movie that's almost 30 years old now, so it's incredible how good this 4K made it look. Now from the audio standpoint, now it's got 2 audio tracks. You can listen to this in French or you can listen to it with an English dub. Both of them are in a DTS 2.0 mono track, so you're only going to get those 2 tracks and that's it. You know, it's going to be a front blasting kind of deal. They just don't use all the speakers. I would have liked the 5.1 surround sound. Especially since the score in this is just really, really good, and I think it would have made a much better use of your speakers had they actually used all the channels. I'm not too sure why they didn't upgrade the audio. I'm noticing this throughout the entire set, that they really took the time to upgrade the visuals, but kind of just left the audio at like really what it originally was. Like, I understood why there was a mono track on The Celluloid Closet, because that's a documentary. It's not, you know, it's mostly dialogue driven, but this film, this could have easily been a silent film because it just looked great. And even for the first like 20 minutes of the movie, there's almost, if any, dialogue. And even Ron Perlman's character, he doesn't have that much dialogue throughout, so this could have been a silent film, and that would have made great use of all the other audio channels, like the score, all the background noise, and just the noises throughout the film. Would have made great use of it if we would have just at least had a 5.1. Instead we get a 2.0, and it's not the worst 2.0. I'm just a little upset because the audio in this film I think is really great. The mono track is good enough. It's just I think that the audio, because the audio is just so good in this film, it could have just been so much better. So it's just a complaint of want. You know, the mono track is still good enough. It does carry along the film perfectly. The dialogue is clear. It's not like it's mixed bad. It's just I think it could have been so much more. And that's my only complaint about the audio. And overall, as a disc, I think it's a really solid disc if this ever gets its own standalone 4K release, which I seriously doubt. I believe that this is the only place this 4K will ever be, is in this box set, because I've heard of this movie just going down Ron Perlman's like filmography and stuff like that, but I'd never really heard of it before until it was in this box set. I don't know how many people are asking for this on its own individual release, but if you ever do want to check it out in its best quality, that's definitely going to be in this Sony Pictures Classic set, because the visuals are amazing, the audio is alright, the extras are pretty good, the packaging very solid. So overall, if I was going to rate this on a score of 1 to 10, I would still give this a really solid 8 out of 10, because the visuals just blew me away on this one. Now the film itself, I wasn't in love with it, but it's still a good film and I never was bored and I enjoyed my time with it. Will I be revisiting? Maybe sometime down the line, but I'm definitely not in a rush. Even saying all that, just the fact of how good the disc is and just how much work clearly went into making this film, because it is a beautiful film. It's definitely worth your time, even if you don't check it out in the Sony Pictures 4K set. I think as a film fan, and especially if you're a fan of cinematography, definitely check this one out. And part 4 of this should be coming out sometime next week. I hope you guys are enjoying these reviews of the Sony Pictures Classics box set. There's going to be a few more of these. And if you like these kinds of videos, nothing helps the channel out more than by you liking this video and subscribing to the channel. And then after you do all that, why don't you go out and tell all your friends.